Good afternoon, dear students. It is my privilege to welcome you all. Today, Zoology department is organizing a live teleconference on vertebrate general characters, classification and adaptations, especially for UG semester 2 and PG semester 1 students. Today's topic is highly significant for students of zoology and life sciences. Vertebrates represent a diverse group of animals including fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves and mammals. Understanding of their general characters provides a strong academic foundation. It helps students and appreciate the diversity of life and evolutionary changes that enable organisms to survive in different conditions. After completing this session, you will be able to explain the general characters of vertebrates, and you can classify the animals and you can identify the organisms based on their general characters, and you can compare the adaptations of vertebrates living in aquatic, terrestrial and desert areas. I will confident that after this session it is highly informative, engaging and beneficial to all participants. I request all students listen actively and interact actively. Then if you have any doubts, feel free to ask at the end of the session. You can call on 040-23680-456. I repeat the number again. You can call on 040-23680-456. We are honored to have two distinguished resource persons today, Dr. Meenakshi Garu, Assistant Professor, Nizam College, Usmania University, Cr. Varalakshmi Garu, Counsellor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. We sincerely thank both our resource persons for sparing their valuable time and joining us today to share their expertise and their insights. Madam, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University offering BSc in Telugu, English and Urdu medium. So, I request you to kindly use Telugu and Hindi words whenever required. So, now let us welcome Dr. Meenakshi Garu. Can you explain general characters of vertebrates?
Yes, thank you Kishore Garu. Welcome to all the students online for the discussion on the general characters of chordata. Before entering into chordata, we all have studied about the invertebrates in our first semester. Now we are going, what is the difference between the invertebrate and the vertebrate? Why we are calling it as non-chordates, chordate or invertebrate or vertebrate? The difference here lies is the chordata, chorda means it is the string of chords. The animals which are bearing the string of chords are called as chordata, and these animals are having a vertebral column. That is the most important aspect of it, which differentiate them from the invertebrates or the non-chordata. Though all the other features like heart, digestive system, nervous system, etc., they all are different. Though they exist, they are all in a primitive stage. When we come to chordata, they are all highly advanced. This term chordata has been coined by Balfour in 1880. He said that the string of chords which are borne by the animals, they are called as chordata. They belong to the deuterostome phyla. What do you mean by deuterostome? That during the development of the embryo, the blastopore becomes the anus. Generally in invertebrates we have seen they are called as proteostome, which is the blastopore is becoming the mouth. But whereas in case of chordata, we say that it is becoming an anus. That's why it is a deuterostome phyla. Now coming to the deuterostome, there are so many organisms that are there. When you name it, you are seeing one animal. Now it becomes very difficult for us to know that animal belongs to which area, which category, where we have to place them. For that, it is essential for us to know the general characters of each and every insect or in each and every animal that you come across, and then place them in a proper order. And that order, it defines what are the characteristic feature of that particular order or a class or a kingdom. So we divide them, and that is called as the classification. We need to classify because we are not seeing only one species or two species. There are more than 45,000 species of animals present in and around. It is very difficult. Even when you see birds, you see variety of birds, and in those varieties, though they are very small, they have feathers, they have claws, they have beak. There is a difference. The type of the beak is different, the claws are different, the shades that are there different, the food what they eat, that is different, habitat is different. So it is very difficult for us to say that birds are all one. So like that, for every animal that we come across, classification is essential. Now that classification, we have already done it in terms of invertebrate and vertebrate. Now coming to the chordata characters, how it is different from the non-chordates. Three general features or the main important fundamental features the chordate should have. That is, it should have a tubular nerve cord. It should be a hollow tubular nerve cord. The presence of this is very important. We have not seen this kind of a nerve cord in the invertebrates. Higher invertebrates we have seen, but in general the nerve cord is not there. Then it is not being differentiated later on as we are seeing in chordate. The second thing is a notochord. Presence of a notochord is very important. During the lifetime, anytime these characters should be there. The third important one is the gill slits. The presence of gill slits. Now you might be thinking that human being does not have a gill slit, or the animals that are coming from the mammalian group, that during the lifetime you will see this spiracle present or the openings that are there, which are the remnants of gills. So during their larval stage or the developmental stage, we see these three characters. As the chordates are developing or growing into adults, we see that these characters either are lost or they are being replaced by some other characters. But it is essential for the chordates to have these three characters. Now when we see these animals, where do these animals exist? These animals, they are either aquatic or they are aerial or terrestrial. What do you mean by aquatic? The animals which are present in water, like they can be marine water, fresh water, brackish water, any type of a water system, those animals are called as aquatic animals. So they inhabit aquatic area. Aerial, the animals which are present in the air, or those are flying, which are taking the atmosphere as their habitat, that those are called as aerial animals. And terrestrial, on land, the animals which are dwelling on land, they are called as terrestrial. And we should know that there are no parasitic forms in chordata. Even if the parasitic forms are there, they are temporary parasites. They are not the parasite as we have seen in invertebrate. So here, that is the major difference what we can bring about in vertebrate and in invertebrate. Now coming to the chordata, body, when we see the body is small to large. We can see a small animal to a large animal. So we can see an elephant, we can see a small mouse. So based on that, we can say that the body of the chordata range from smaller size to larger size. And the next important aspect is bilateral symmetry. That the chordate character is that they exhibit bilateral symmetry. That means when you cut a particular individual, two equal halves are being seen, which we cannot see it in invertebrate. And next important is metamerically segmented. Metamerical, that means each part is having the similar type of the organs, or they are being segmented in a particular fashion. And when you see the next important character, it is the presence of post-anal tail. Generally in the chordates, the tail will be produced and it will go beyond the anal region. But later on, in some of the adults, in some of the chordates, that can be lost. But most of them, they have a post-anal and this tail may persist or may not persist. Coming to the next aspect, that once we know the body, small or large, now we have to go into the inner characteristics of the chordate. First we will go with the exoskeleton, that means outer area of the body, that is the outer covering. So exoskeleton is present in case of chordates. What kind of exoskeleton? It can be in the form of scales, feathers, hairs, claws, etc. So exoskeleton is present and they are very well developed in vertebrates, and this gives lot of integumentary adaptation to the chordates. Next, below that is the body wall. This body wall, again, it is triploblastic. That is why we call the chordates as a true coelomate animals, because they have 3 germ layers: ectoderm, endoderm and a mesoderm. These 3 germ layers are perfectly placed, and therefore we call them as the triploblastic animals. Then coming to the next, as I told you that they are true coelomate animals, that means the coelom, the body cavity is a true coelom which is lined by the epidermal lining. So it is a true coelom and it is of 2 types, that is enterocoelous and the schizocoelous type of the coelom. What do you mean by enterocoelous and schizocoelous? Enterocoelous, it develops from the pouches of archenteron. If we remember how the development is occurring from the gastrula stage, the endoderm is invaginating and then giving out the pockets, and these pockets will become the body cavity. That is called as the enterocoelous type of a coelom. And the second one is the schizocoelous type, that is the myotomes, the mesodermal layer. It will break into smaller pouches and that will go and cover different organs of the body. Those type of coelom is called as a schizocoelous coelom. So coelom, they are true coelomates and it can be enterocoelous or the schizocoelous. Then next is the notochord. The skeletal rod is present which is called as a notochord, and it persists throughout the lifetime, which will be later on modified to form the vertebral column. Then the bones, endoskeleton. When we talk about the endoskeleton is either cartilaginous or bony. When you talk about the endoskeleton in invertebrates, there was no endoskeleton at all, except when you come to the mollusca, the higher mollusks and the echinodermata, there is no endoskeleton at all, and those endoskeleton is also very primitive. Endo means internal, skeleton. This gives the shape to the body. So endoskeleton is present in case of the chordata, and this can be bony or it can be cartilaginous. The next important aspect is the pharyngeal gills. They are present at least at any stage of their lifetime, and they are functional initially and later on they become non-functional. Then once we have spoken about the external characters, now let us go into the systems which contribute to the chordates. That is, first system is the digestive system or the alimentary canal. It is a complete alimentary canal. What do you mean by complete alimentary canal? It is start with mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestine, then rectum, anus. This is a complete digestive system or the alimentary canal, and it is also having the digestive glands. In some you will see that there is a presence of cloaca. The anal opening is not there, it will be opening directly into the cloaca. So some of the chordates will see that the alimentary canal is opening into cloaca, or there is a separate anal opening. Then next is our circulatory system, heart. Heart is muscular and it is organ which is completely bringing about the muscular movement, where it is throwing away the blood through various parts of the body. So this heart is very essential in case of chordates, and we will come to the later classes where we see that the division of the heart, whether it is a 2-chambered heart or a 3-chambered heart or a 4-chambered heart. And the blood vessels that are there, they are the aorta and other accessory blood vessels which play an important role in the circulatory system, and in chordates this is very well developed. And not only that, we also see the renal portal system, hepatoportal system is also developed. And as we are coming across in the further one, we will be talking about renal and hepatoportal system. The next is the excretory system. Excretory system comprises of the paired kidneys. A pair of kidneys are present, and these kidneys can be mesonephric, metanephric, or it can be pronephric. That is, during the developmental stages, the nephrostome, the initial part of the nephrostome becoming a kidney, it is called as a pronephric. The middle part, it is called as a mesonephric, and the posterior part, it is called as a metanephric kidney. Then comes the nervous system, because the stimulus is very important. We are known for the reflex action. So, nerve cord here, it is very, very essential. It is very well developed, and most important aspect what we should see in comparison to the non-chordates is that this is a dorsal nerve cord. It is a tubular nerve cord, and the nerve cord has a speciality that anteriorly it will convert into a distinct organ, that is the brain. So, nerve cord has a capacity to become a brain or make a brain in the anterior portion. This we are not seeing in the invertebrates, because in invertebrates it is just a nerve ring what we are seeing, or it is a mass of ganglia which is called as a brain. And then coming to the next aspect is the reproductive system. Reproductive system is very well developed in chordates, and here sexual dimorphism can be seen. Sexes are separate, male and female sexes are separate, and there are certain exceptions which we will be discussing later, but mostly all of them are having a separate sexes. There are no hermaphroditic conditions. With these particular characters, we can go for the classification of chordata. Generally, we say that vertebrata and chordata is one and the same. Within few seconds, we will be able to know what is chordata and what is vertebrata. Now, this chordata, it is being divided into two groups, acrania and craniata. Acrania, where there is no development of distinct brain, and craniata, there is a development of a brain which is enclosed in a skull. There is no skull formation, there is a skull formation. So, these are the two subphyla, two subgroups what we are seeing in chordata, crania and acrania and craniata. Acrania is again divided into subphylum 1, 2, 3, that is hemichordata, urochordata and cephalochordata. Now, hemichordata, urochordata and cephalochordata, they are primitive ones, and you will be knowing from the other resource person like what hemichordata, urochordata and cephalochordata is different from the actual vertebrates, and craniata encloses all the vertebrate animals. Now, let us go on to the general characters of vertebrates. Vertebrates, that means they have a vertebral column. There is a chain or a series of the vertebrae which are being arranged, and there is a presence of the skull which we name them as a craniata. So, presence of skull and the vertebral column gives them into a distinct subphylum of the craniata group, or they belong to gnathostomata, jaw-bearing animals. So, vertebrata comes under this. Then how do you say that it is different from chordate? Chordate comprises of hemichordata, urochordata and extinct animals and the lower primitive chordates also. But vertebrates, it's only the vertebrates with all the distinct characters of notochord, nerve cord and the pharyngeal gills. The lower vertebrates, when you see the habitat of these vertebrates, lower vertebrates, they are aquatic like fishes, amphibia, that is both the aquatic and the terrestrial region, and then higher vertebrates when you come across, they are all either aerial or terrestrial. Predominantly all the vertebrates, they appear to be terrestrial in nature. The body of the vertebrates, it is medium to large, and they are bilaterally symmetrical. Again the same thing, metamerically segmented. It has the same chordate characters. Then body is typically made up of head, trunk and the post-anal tail region. Generally body, when we talk about the segmentation, it is the head region where the concentration of the brain or the formation of a brain is there. Then it is a trunk which bears all the appendages and the tail region. So, body has predominantly these three. Neck is present or may not be present. Neck in higher vertebrates can be present, whereas in the lower vertebrates it is absent. The trunk bears the appendages. There are different jointed appendages which will help in the locomotion. Then body covering, as I told you, the integument, it is very, very important aspect of it. It is made up of stratified epithelium or stratified epidermis layer, and also you can see the mucus glands present in the skin. skin, and mostly in aquatic species you will see the mucous glands. The skin is covered externally by the exoskeleton. In chordates we were talking about the exoskeleton. These exoskeletons are nothing but the scales, as in fish or in the parts of bird, that legs etc., or on the snakes you see different types of scales. You have hairs, different types of hair, fur etc., claws, the hooves, nails, all this will form the exoskeleton. Again, coelom is schizoccelous. It is breaking down from the pouches of the mesoderm and it is covering up all the other parts of the body, that is the visceral organs. Notochord, here it is converting into vertebral column. It is not extending as it is. In some of the vertebrates later on in the classification you will see that they will be retained the notochord, but it is not converting them into vertebrate, but notochord is transfusing later on into a vertebral column. And then you also see the jointed endoskeleton. The bones are jointed. It can be bones or it can be cartilage. The two forms can be jointed. So jointed appendages can be seen, or jointed parts of the skeleton can be seen in the form of vertebrae, or in the skulls or the limb bones you will see the jointed endoskeleton. Then associated with the endoskeleton we also have muscles, and these muscles are in the batches which are called as the myotomes. Then along with the digestive system, when we are talking about digestive system, it is generally coiled and it is convoluted. Digestive system or the alimentary canal, it is not a straight tube, it is coiled, much coiled, and it is much longer when compared to the animal body. Liver is very well developed and it is very massive. It is not just a simple sac like, but it is a large liver that is present. And pharyngeal gills, that they may be present in the larval stages or a developmental stage. There are generally 7 pharyngeal gills are present. Then respiration. Generally respiration in lower aquatic forms you see it in the form of gills, and in the transition animals you will see that skin also plays an important role in the respiration, but in the higher vertebrates you see that it is been replaced by lungs. Coming to blood vascular system, heart, here it is either 2-chambered as in fishes, 3-chambered in case of the amphibians, and 4-chambered, partially 4-chambered in reptiles, and then aves and mammals you see completely 4-chambered heart. And when you see the blood circulation, it is a closed blood circulation. It is flowing in the blood vessels, it is not flowing in the body cavity. So it is called as a closed blood circulation. It comprises of both white cells and the RBC cell, whereas in some of the primitive chordates we will not see the RBC present, and mostly in primitive vertebrates or we see that the RBCs are nucleated, but our RBCs are non-nucleated, and it also contains the pigment called as hemoglobin. That's why the blood is red in all the vertebrates with few exceptions in Pisces. Coming to excretory system, paired kidneys, they can be mesonephric or metanephric. They are segmental or non. That means segmental in a sense that they are present in each segment, or they can be present only in 1 or 2 areas. Like human beings, only 1 kidney is present in the abdominal region. So they can be segmental or non-segmental. They will be opening to the exterior by means of cloaca or the anal region. And then we have a nerve cord, dorsal nerve cord. It is very, very important, and it enlarges into brain, as we already said, and there are cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are very, very specific. There are 10 cranial nerves, with some exceptions. We have 12 cranial nerves in some of the chordate animals. 10 to 12 pairs of cranial nerves are there, but generally it is 10. And in case of cyclostomes, we see that the spinal nerves that are there, generally the spinal nerve, we know that the spinal cord has a dorsal root and a ventral root. They both combine together and they come out of the foramen and as a single spinal nerve. But in case of lower vertebrates, in cyclostomes, you see that it is separately coming out. Dorsal root come out separately and ventral root comes out separately. And in the next one is the ventral nerve cord. It is motor in function and also it is sensory in function. It receives the stimulus and gives the stimulus, whereby it is acting as a central nervous system as well as autonomic nervous system and peripheral, which we cannot see it in all the other type of the lower vertebrates. And also we see that the spinal nerves which are coming out of the root of the vertebral column, you see there are spinal ganglia are present, and those ganglia play a very important role in the lymphatic control. Then coming to the sensory organs, whereas in case of the invertebrates we have seen the sensory organs, they are rudimentary or they are not so effective, they are just chemotactic or tactile, but here we have large eyes. Then we have the ears, the development of eyes, ears play a major role in the transition of invertebrates to an organ, that is auditory organs. Auditory organs comprises of semilunar canals, where that which we call it as a eardrum, which we cannot see it in invertebrates and in lower vertebrates. And when you talk about this, it is in the form of tympanic membrane in case of amphibians, and in fishes you also see that there is no type of. And one important system what we can see is the endocrine system. And few of the invertebrates we can see endocrine system, but whereas here endocrine system plays an important role for all the type of the functions that we are going. It comprises of ductless glands like the pancreas, then we have the thyroid, gonads, adrenal, etc. They regulate all the body processes. Again, sexes are separate, and you see that the gonads that are there, they are paired gonads. And whereas in few in lower whatever we say that there are the diffused gonads, that means they will be present all over, very like in case of leech you might have seen many gonads are present, but here there are paired gonads, and they will be discharging their sex cells through a definite ducts. They will be discharging through the tubes into the cloaca or to the exterior or to the fallopian tubules where the fertilization can occur. So fertilization in case of the vertebrates, it can be oviparous or it can be ovoviviparous. Oviparous in a sense that the females will be giving out the eggs, shedding out the eggs outside, or ovoviviparous in the sense that the fertilization will be taking place within the body itself. So fertilization can be internal or it can be external. Development can be direct or indirect. Mostly we see that the direct development in the sense that the zygote will directly form an adult, there is no larval formation. But in case if there is a larval form and then larva is metamorphosing into the adult, that is called as indirect type of the development.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful explanation. Now over to you, Varalakshmi garu. Madam, can you explain outline classification of chordates and protocordates?
Thank you, Kishore sir. Hello viewers. Till now we have seen the general characteristic features of chordates. Now let me just brief you about the outline classification of phylum Chordata. This phylum Chordata has two groups, as ma'am explained. It is one is acrania, which is also called as Protocordata or lower chordata. The other group is craniata or euchordata or higher chordata. This group acrania has again divided into subphylums Hemichordata, Urochordata and Cephalochordata. Then craniata has only one subphylum, which is Vertebrata. This Vertebrata has again two divisions. One is Agnatha and Gnathostomata. Agnatha is jawless organisms and Gnathostomata is organisms which are having jaws. This Gnathostomata has two superclasses. One is Spices and other one is Tetrapods. These spices, again they have few classes: Ostracodermi, Cyclostomata, Placodermi, Chondrichthyes and Ostrichthyes. Whereas Tetrapoda, they have classes called Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves and Mammalia. Now let us see what is Protochordata. It is often referred to as primitive chordata, though they lack a true skull. That is why we call them as acrania. So these organisms share something defining characters with vertebrates. Let us look into the general characteristic features of Protochordata. The first one is notochord. So in these Protochordates, they possess a notochord, a flexible rod-like structure that provides support. This structure may be present throughout their lives or only during the early stages of embryonic development. If you see the body symmetry, they have bilateral symmetrical, meaning the body can be divided into two equal halves along a longitudinal plane, and they are triploblastic. They have three primary germ cells, ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm, which contribute to more complex than coelomates. They possess a true body cavity surrounded by a mesodermal tissue. If you see the organ system, the level of organization, they exhibit a higher level of organization where different organs work together to perform specific functions, and they are aquatic. All protocordates are aquatic, primarily found in marine environments. If you see the respiration process, they all have gill slits that facilitate respiration and feeding, allowing water to flow through their bodies. Now, reproduction is many protocordates, they reproduce asexually, while others may reproduce sexually, often exhibiting hermaphroditism, which means having both male and female sex organisms in the same organism. Next, if you see central nervous system, their central nervous system is single, hollow and dorsal, which distinguishes it from the central nervous system of non-chordate organisms, where the nervous system is typically ventral or non-hollow. They also have post-anal tail. It is present aiding in balance and locomotion. Then we see heart and circulatory system. Protocordates have a heart that is typically ventral, and their circulatory system may be either open or closed depending on the species. Gut position, the alimentary canal or gut, it is ventral to the nerve cord, allowing for efficient digestion and nutrient absorption. If you see the endostyle, it is present in the alimentary canal, aiding in filter feeding by secreting mucus that traps food particles. So, their simple body structure and lack of many features seen in higher animals make them a focal point for studying the evolutionary origins of chordates. Examples include Amphioxus, Saccoglossus, Balanoglossus and Ascidian. Let us see the classification of Protochordata. This Protochordata is divided into three subphyla based on the type of notochord, like Hemichordata, Urochordata and Cephalochordata. Hemichordata features, if you see, these organisms are marine and can be solitary or colonial. Solitary in the sense they can live alone in the water without mingling with anyone. Colonial means they always like to live in groups. They have a body divided into three regions: proboscis, collar and trunk. Hemichordates possess a primitive notochord known as a stomochord and have a complete digestive tract. Examples include acorn worms. Now, subphylum Urochordata. These are commonly known as tunicates or sea squirts. They include around 2000 species, the majority of which are sedentary marine organisms. These species exhibit distinctive chordate characteristics during their larval stage, but as they grow, they lose many of these features as they mature. These Urochordates are distributed across all the world's seas. The main example is Herdmania pallida. Next, if you see the habit and lifestyle, Urochordates are exclusively marine, predominantly sedentary, attaching themselves to the substrates like rocks or sand. Although some species are pelagic, that means they are free swimming. They can be solitary or form colonial aggregations. Let us see the body structure. Adults typically possess a sac-like body that is unsegmented and lack appendages. Their bodies are covered by a tunic or test. A protective outer layer made of tunicin, an organic material similar to cellulose, is present in them. This tough covering shields the soft-bodied animals from its environment. Next, this is the picture of the Herdmania. Next, if you see the size and shape, the size of urochordates varies greatly, ranging from 0.25 mm to as large as 250 millimeters. Now, what are the chordate features in larvae? Urochordates exhibit chordate characteristics primarily during their larval stage. The larval form possess a notochord, which is a rod-like supportive structure, and a dorsal tubular nerve cord, both of which are key diagnostic features of chordates. However, these features are largely lost during the metamorphosis into adulthood, which involves a retrogressive process where chordate traits degenerate or disappear. Endostyle, they have an endostyle which is homologous to the thyroid gland in vertebrates. That means it is similar to the thyroid gland what vertebrates are having. It helps in trapping food particles during their filter feeding by secreting mucus along the pharyngeal wall. What is hermaphroditism then? These organisms are hermaphroditic. That means the individual has both male and female reproductive organs. Fertilization may be external or internal depending on the species. Apertures, the body of adult urochordates usually has two external openings, a branchial aperture which is for water intake and an atrial aperture that is for expelling water. These apertures are essential for filter feeding and respiration. Next, reproduction and development. They exhibit indirect development where the larval stage is free swimming followed by an adult phase. Metamorphosis involves the degeneration of the notochord, tail and dorsal nerve cord as the organisms becomes sedentary. If you see the classification, the subphylum Urochordata is divided into three main classes: Acidiaceae, which are primarily sedentary and solitary, then Thaliaceae, which are pelagic and free swimming. The third one is Larvaceae, which retain their larval characters throughout their life and remain free swimming. Class Acidiaceae, the general characters if you see, they are commonly referred to as sea squirts. They are mainly marine, that may be solitary or colonial. The notochord and post-anal tail are only present during the larval stage and are absent in adult forms. Adult ascidians are sessile, attaching themselves to the substrates, while larvae are free swimming. The tunic which envelops the organism is composed of an acellular matrix of tunicin, providing structural protection. They possess two openings, an inhalent siphon and an exhalent siphon, which facilitate water flow for feeding and respiration. Ascidians are hermaphroditic, meaning they have both male and female reproductive organs. These organisms are filter feeders, using their siphons to draw in water and extract microorganisms for nutrition. Class 2, if you see, that is Thaliaceae, the general characters are like they are small barrel shaped animals that are also filter feeders, similar to ascidians. The inhalent and exhalent siphons are positioned at opposite ends of the body, allowing water to pass through for feeding and respiration. Thalassea exhibit a unique lifestyle with two generations, one that is solitary and other that forms a chain-like colonies. Class 3, that is Larvaceae, these are also called as appendicularians. These are planktonic organisms characterized by an oval trunk and a long thin tail. The tail of larvaceans contains a notochord which persists throughout their life, providing structural support. The body is covered by a gelatinous layer, but the tail remains exposed and unprotected by this layer. The next subphylum is Cephalochordata. General characters, if you see, the term Cephalochordata is derived from the characteristic feature that the notochord extends forward into the rostrum, even surpassing the so-called brain also. These cephalochordates are exclusively marine, primarily found in shallow waters across the globe. These organisms are mostly sedentary, often remaining buried in sandy substrates. Their body structure is small, slender, and transparent, allowing for efficient movement and camouflage in their aquatic environment. These consist of small fish-like marine organisms that retain their chordae features throughout their life cycle. This subphylum includes a single class, that is Leptochordae, which has two genera, Branchiostomata and Asymmetrome, with a total of 15 known species. These cephalochordates are crucial for understanding the evolutionary history of chordates due to their unique anatomical characteristics and lifestyle. Unlike many other chordates, cephalochordates lack paired appendages, although they do possess median fins. The exoskeleton is absent. Instead, the muscles are arranged dorsolaterally and segmented into myotomes, allowing for flexible movement. Example is Amphioxus. Next, the general characters of Pisces, ma'am is going to explain.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful explanations. Dear students, if you have any questions, you can call 040-23680-456. You can clarify your doubts at the end of the session. Thank you, madam. Now over to you, Meenakshi Garu. Madam, can you explain the general characters and classification of fishes and amphibians?
Yes. Now, Madam has explained to you about the primitive type of the chordates, where the notochord was present either in the tail, or it was reduced, or it was diminishing, like pharyngeal gills present or not. So you have seen certain characters which were retained or which have been lost. But when we come to the Pisces generally, chordata, we say that it is been divided into class. Generally, classification has been done kingdom, phylum, class, order, suborder, like that. But here for Pisces we call it as a super class. We cannot call it as a class, but it is called as a super class. Now when we talk about Pisces, these are purely aquatic. All the Pisceans or all the fishes, they are aquatic and they are jaw bearing. They are the first jaw bearing animals, and therefore they are called as gnathostomes. And these fishes, they flourished in the Silurian period, and they were ruling the entire area during the Devonian period, and therefore Devonian period is called as a golden age of fishes. So these fishes, there are variety of fishes are present. They inhabit large number of areas like aquatic, marine or the freshwater, and we have variety of these fishes. They range from a smaller fish to a larger fish. One example is been given as Pedocyprus species, which is the smallest one. The other one is the Rhinocodon typhus, which is the largest fish which we are able to see. From smaller one, it is 1.1 mm to 9 meters, like it is a very large fish. So here these fishes, they belong to the subphylum Vertebrata, and in this there are a number of classifications were going on. They said that early jawed fishes, they belong to acanthodians, and these acanthodians later on they gave rise to the bony fishes, and the other one were the placoderms, which gave rise to the cartilaginous fishes. Cartilaginous fishes, they are lower category when compared to the bony fishes. Bony fishes, what we eat daily, like katla, rohu, these are all coming as a bony fish. Shark comes as a cartilaginous fish. So the fishes, based on the endoskeleton, we can divide them into two, and the classification has been done as the cartilaginous fish or a bony fish. Now as we said that they are aquatic, they can inhabit marine or freshwater, and not only that, when we talk about the vertebrates, the important aspect is temperature. Till now in invertebrates we were never bothered about the temperature, but here because they are living in water, as the temperature increases, there is a change in the water temperature. So animal has to adjust to that particular temperature. Therefore these animals, they try to adjust according to the temperature. If it is cold, they adjust their body temperature. If it hot, so therefore they are called as the poikilothermic animals. They are cold blooded animals, and they are also known as the ectotherms. and they are herbivorous or carnivorous. Some of the fishes, they take only the herbivorous food, some they feed on the carnivorous animal. When you see the body shape, as I told you, when we are doing for the classification or the characters, first we should go from the shape of the body. The body shape is spindle shaped and it is dorsoventrally flattened, or it is dorsoventrally compressed, and we also see that the streamlined body helps in the movement in the water. Coming to the locomotion, the next aspect is movement. These fishes, they are continuously moving, and this movement is brought about by fins. We have two types of fins here, paired fins and unpaired fins. Here we have paired fins like pectoral fins, pelvic fins, median fins, and the caudal fin and the dorsal fin, they are unpaired fin. And these fin rays, they play an important role, that the fins are being, whether they are supported by fin rays or not. If they are not supported, they become a different type of category. So fin rays plays an important role in categorizing the fish, whether they have the fin rays or they don't have a fin rays. So fin rays, generally these fin rays, they are the extensions of the endoskeleton, which will be supporting the fins, and they help in balancing, and also they help in the muscular movement, or they also help in the propulsion of the body, because they have to, sometimes the fish has to swim against the water current, so that time propulsion is to be there. So these fins, they help in the propulsion of the body. Now coming to the endoskeleton, endoskeleton is made up of the cartilaginous structures or the bony fin rays. The jaws are present in these particular animals, and these jaws bear the teeth, and when we see the teeth, they are acrodont, polyphyodont, homodont type of teeth. What do you mean by acrodont, homodont and polyphyodont teeth? Acrodont, that means they are not present in the sockets. Our teeth are present in the socket. Acrodont, they are not thecodont, they are acrodont. And polyphyodont, they can be replaced, and number, if it is been broken, again they will be replaced. Homodont, homo means similar type of, the teeth are present. For us, we have canines, incisors, like that, but all the teeth are homodont. Coming to exoskeleton, exoskeletons, they are in the form of scales. That is, we have ganoid scale, ctenoid scale, plecoid scale, cycloid scale. The different types of scales are present. Then sometimes we can also see denticles, or they will be in the form of bony plates. In some fishes like camera, etc., you will see bony plates. Then here the most important aspect is the presence of ribs. We know that ribs, it forms a cage for supporting the internal organ. So ribs are present here, and muscles are arranged in patterns or segments, which are called as myotomes, and these myotomes, they bring about the propulsion movement, and also to overcome the force of the water. It is very easy for it to move from the water sources. Coming to the alimentary canal, it has a definite stomach, and this stomach, it is in some of the fishes like sharks, we see that it is J-shaped, otherwise it is a tubular stomach what we see, and it terminates into cloaca or anus, depending upon the classification of the animal. Either it will be a cloacal opening or it can be an anal opening. Then important aspect is, in case of the cartilaginous fish, we see there is a scroll valve in the intestine. As we have villi in the intestine for the absorption and moving, there to increase the absorption, we have a scroll valve in case of cartilaginous fishes, and in cartilaginous fishes we see stomach is J-shaped. Respiration here, it is purely by means of gills. Now gills also plays an important role in the classification of the fishes, where whether the gills that are there, they are directly opening outside, or they are internally opening, or they are operculated, or they are non-operculated. So, and how?
Yeah, we have call, madam. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Can you tell? I have a question.
Yes, please.
What is symmetry and what are its types?
Yeah, madam, the question is, what is symmetry and its types?
Yes, ma'am. Symmetry means that is the structure of the body. It has three types. One is bilateral symmetry. That means to say, when you cut a body longitudinally, it has two equal halves, left side and right side. So that is called as bilateral symmetry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, madam. Yes, symmetry is 3 types as
Yeah,
madam
3 types.
explained.
So bilateral symmetry, and the next one is radial symmetry. So you can cut the body into in any axis into n number of pieces where all the pieces will be equal size. The third one is biradial. You can cut the organism into 2 equal halves, but the internal organs or in the both the sides will not be equal. So these are the 3 types: bilateral, radial and biradial.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, madam. And we can also see pentaradial symmetry in echinoderms also. Thank you, madam. And over to you, Meenakshi garu. Please, can you continue this
Yes.
topic?
So the next is after the alimentary canal, it is the respiration. Respiration is by means of gills, and they can be operculated. Operculated in the sense that the gills are covered by an operculum, which is again a cartilaginous or a bony structure which is covering the gill pattern. Then it is the dentition. Already we have spoken that they are acrodont, polyphyodont and the homodont type. Coelom here is divided into pockets. We can see pericardial cavity and peritoneal cavity. Pericardial, cardial is heart. Heart is covered by the cavity or enclosed in a cavity which is called as a pericardial cavity, and the other one is peritoneal cavity. That means all the other organs, they are being enclosed in a particular cavity, and it is being divided by means of a cleft. These 2 cavities are being divided by a cleft. And then coming to the next aspect is the nostrils. Again, presence of nostrils is an important feature in the classification of features, whether they are present or absent. If they are present, are they connected with the internal nostrils or they are not? Generally, in case of fishes, these nostrils that are present, they are present on the outer surface at the tip of the snout, and they generally internal nostrils, they will not be connecting it internally, except in case of dipnoid fishes where they will be internally connecting it. Then a pair of prominent eyes are there. When we are talking about all the other vertebrates till now, we have not seen the presence of eyes. Here we have a prominent eyes, and we also see the presence of nasal sacs. So nasal, that means the respiration or the smell, the nature of the smell can also be seen in this particular fishes. So presence of nasal sac as well as eyes which open into the mouth. So in the buccal cavity region, they open into the buccal cavity region. From there it will enter into either the respiratory tract or into the alimentary tract. Coming to tympanic cavity and the ear ossicles. Here generally in case of fishes, tympanic cavity, that is the eardrum, is absent. Ear ossicles like stapes, incus, what we have it, that is absent here. It is just in the form of 3 small tubes connected together with the ampulla, and these are called as semicircular canals, and these are filled up with the liquid and some kind of the small particles which will be moving around. When there is a movement of a fish, they will be able to gather the noise, or that is how they will be able to do it. Therefore, it is called as the semicircular canals are present, but not the ear ossicles. And then the important aspect is the sense organs. Presence of sense organs, lateral line sense organs are present, which will detect the pressure in the water. Coming to heart, as I told you, it is an important factor in case of chordates. Heart here is 2-chambered. It is comprising of the conus arteriosus and sinus venosus. There are 2 parts of the chamber we can see, and we also have the arterial system and the venous system, which we call it as efferent system and the efferent system in case of the lower invertebrates like in sharks, etc. And the heart pumps the blood by means of a dorsal aorta to various parts of the body, and this heart, the sinus venosus and the conus arteriosus, what we call it, is auricle or a ventricle.
Excuse me, madam, we have another call. Hello. Hello. Yeah, disconnected, madam. Sorry for the inconvenience. Dear students, if you have any questions, you can call on 040-23680-456. Madam, please can you continue.
Yes, and then here blood is pigmented, it has a hemoglobin, and also erythrocytes are nucleated, and portal systems are very well developed. What do you mean by a portal system? Renal portal system or hepatic portal system. That means the venous blood that is being collected from the hepatic region, from the posterior region of the body, the renal system, that is from the kidneys and the posterior part, the blood will be poured into the kidneys. From there it is being taken to the liver. That is called as a renal portal system. From liver again it will be taken to the lungs for purification, that is called as the hepatic portal system. So these two portal systems are very well developed. Coming to brain, brain here it comprises of 5 parts, that is cerebrum, cerebellum is there, medulla is there, olfactory lobes are present and optic lobes are there. Here in case of lower fishes, we see this olfactory lobes, they are very large.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I have a small doubt.
Yes, please.
Can you explain about the aquatic adaptations in vertebrates?
So the question is aquatic adaptations.
Okay.
Meenakshi madam, can you explain about that?
Yes, aquatic adaptation. Now, as we are doing the Pisces, we should know that the animals are adapted to aquatic region. Now, here we have 2 types of adaptation. One is primary, where the ancestors, the animals which are produced from the ancestors which were living in water. So, from those ancestors which animals are coming, they will get the primary type of adaptations, and like tetrapods, like amphibians, some of the mammals like whale, etc. These are mammals. So when the ancestors from the terrestrial source giving rise to the animals for the aquatic life, those animals will develop the secondary type of the adaptation. The primary type of adaptation is fish. When we take, it is the streamlined body, the the fins that are there. Then coming to the eyes, here when you see the eye, the protuberance, and then that eye will have a nictitating membrane, so that the water will not go and occupy that. Then the muscles that are there, those muscles also play an important role. Most important aspect is osmoregulation, because water, when we see the body constants or the body substances, the body fluid, it is having large number of salts, and when we see the water, whether it is a fresh water or a marine water or it is the brackish water, the salt concentration varies. If the salt concentration in our body is more and water is less, the water will enter into our body. And suppose if the salt concentration in our body is less and it is more outside, then our water will go out. So this phenomena of osmoregulation, this can be done in case of fishes very well, because they have the chloride cells and chloride developing cell, so that they will maintain the inflow of this water and maintain osmoregulation. Whereas in case of the animals that are coming like from the tetrapod origin, like whales, turtles, amphibia, here the respiratory organs, when we say the gills are nominal, they have the nostrils, nostril will be covered with a flap, and then they take up the air and hold the air. They have the capacity to hold air for a longer period of time, whereas fishes it is not required. The respiration through gills it will be happening, whereas in case of whales etc., you see that they have lungs, because they are tetrapods, the respiratory organs are lungs. So here they have lungs and the lung capacity will be more, so they come up. That is the reason why whales and other animals, dolphins etc., you see that they keep coming to the surface of the water continuously. They come, they take the air and go down, and they are adapted to control the air for a longer period of time. Their slime body, they do not have any kind of scales. When we talk about the tetrapods, the scales are more important. Either they should have a fur or a hair or a scales onto the body. These are not there onto the body. And other thing is they have a swim bladder, the presence of swim bladder in case of tetrapods, so that they will maintain the buoyancy. Because when we talk about tetrapods or the mammals as such, body weight is very heavy, it is very difficult. So this blubber or this the air sacs will be helping them in movement. And not only that, they have paddle like fin. They do not have fins, because if they have fins, they are Pisces. So they do not have fins. The appendages that are there, those appendages become lobe like or they are flipper like, so they will be paddling it and moving. These are certain important aspects what we see as a modification. There are many such, but these are the major. When you see ducks, the birds that are flowing, you will see webbed feet, And when you see frogs, they are also webbed feet without any claws, etc. So these are all the modifications or the adaptations for the aquatic region.
Yes, madam. Thank you. And madam, can you briefly explain about the classification of these amphibians?
Amphibian classification. Amphibians, these amphibians, they are the in between animals. They are neither aquatic nor they are terrestrial. When we go about the classification of amphibia, we see that they are being divided into number of number of classes, like 7 classes will be there, but most of them, they are extinct. When we talk about them, they are extinct. I'll just
okay, madam. Thank you, madam. Yeah, dear students, our these lessons, these sessions and recording videos also available in our YouTube channel. You can watch for more information there. Thank you, students.